old friend Bob. I said my roof it leaks, my rug's a mess, and my front door needs a new knob. I got squirrels in my attic, I got bats in my head. Well, Bob just leaned over the counter and he shook his head and said, you need home repairs and solutions. Home repairs and solutions. They'll fix your windows, they'll fix your house, they'll even tell you how to get rid of a mouse. Home repairs and solutions.
It's a Friday morning, which means it's time for Home Repairs and Solutions, brought to you by Spring Mountain Air Heating and Air Conditioning, your local Amana dealer. And now here is your host, Mary Pearson. Mary, good morning to you.
Good morning, Dan. Good to be here today.
It's good to have you here. And as usual, you always have good guests. You always have great guests, and well, always learn every time doing the program. I always learn something, whether it be about roofs, plumbing, or whatever it might be. Always learn something.
I do too. That's why this is such a fun show to do, because I learn a lot too, because there's a lot of things I don't know about, and so I'm always excited to have great guests on the show with lots of knowledge.
You know about heating and air conditioning.
I do know about heating and air conditioning. Yes, I do.
That's good.
So if anyone has any questions about that, we can help with that today as well. I want to say welcome, everyone. This is Home Repairs and Solutions. And today, our guest on the show is Ron Hartman from RE/MAX. Ron has been with us on the show before. It's been a little bit, and thought we would bring him back. It's summertime. A lot of people do a lot of moving around in the summertime, buying and selling homes and different things. So we thought we would bring him back on and kind of give you an update on what's going on in our local housing market. So welcome today, Ron.
Well, thanks. It's good to be back.
Well, as I said, there's a lot of things that I don't know about. I'm not an expert in real estate. I do own a home, but other than that, I don't know too much about it. But I do believe that maybe there's a little more activity than there was when we had you on back in March.
Yes, there is. I'd say probably it was about the middle of March that we really started seeing things pick up, and it's pretty normal for things to get busier in the spring throughout the summer, especially once school gets out. People like to try to move during the summer to not have to worry about taking kids out of school and things like that. And it's been a good spring and so far a good summer, and we're just hoping it keeps going that way.
Yes, I hope it does too. I hope that's an indication that things are starting to pick up a little bit for at least our local economy. One of the questions I had for you today is, is it mostly people here moving from one house to another that already live here, or is it people moving to Springfield from other areas?
I'd say the most is people staying in the area, selling one house and moving another, but we still do get a good mixture of people getting transferred out of town with jobs or people getting transferred in town with jobs. It's hard to say exactly what percentage is, but the majority of it is people staying here locally, but there's a decent amount of business of people transferring and moving in and moving out of town as well.
That would be something that we talked about a little bit before the show is the interest rates are still really good right now.
Yes.
And like we were kind of talking, some people were kind of trying to hold on a little bit, thinking maybe the market would come up before they sold, but some of those people are actually starting to go ahead and sell now. And you were kind of explaining to me how actually, even though they might be taking a little less for the house they're selling now, they actually might end up being better off doing that now, and especially if they're upgrading. How is that working out?
Yeah, definitely. For the sake of easy math, we'll just say the market went down about 10%. And if someone was living in a $100,000 home and it's gone down 10%, so they've lost $10,000 on that house. Well, if they're moving up in price range and they buy a $150,000 house and that house went down 10%, so it lost $15,000, they're actually gaining that $5,000 of equity when they're moving into their new home. So for people moving up in price range in a home, they're actually, although it still hurts to take a hit on the house that you're selling, you're going to make it up later down the road.
So anybody that's kind of been sitting on the fence with that, sometimes it's kind of hard to figure out that, like you said, it's hard to take a loss. It really is. It's just something that's difficult to get through mentally and everything else.
Well, and especially with real estate, everybody's, at least my whole life and most people's lives, they always say real estate always goes up. Your
I've
house
heard that
is
too.
Always going to go up in value. And as much as we'd like to believe that, and real estate tends to be more steady than the stock market and other things like that. But like the stock market, it fluctuates. It goes up and down, and sometimes it goes up a lot, sometimes it goes up a little, sometimes it goes down a lot. And but I think as far as selling houses, people are just used to always being able to at least break even, if not make money when they sell. And so when we do have a down market like this, it kind of catches them off guard, and it's hard for them to understand why they're not going to be able to make money when they sell their house.
And most people, maybe not all, but I think most people not only do they have the financial mindset that they should always make money, but you have this emotional attachment to your home as well. And so oftentimes you maybe put a higher value on your home than it's really worth as far as the market is concerned. So
yes,
that's something that's sometimes hard to overcome too. You're having to deal with the emotional part of maybe selling your house and for whatever reason, and then you add the financial loss.
Most definitely.
Then sometimes it can be a really tough thing for people to try and get through.
Well, and especially if they've been in their house for a long time, or they raised their children in that house, there's, like you said, there's that emotional value that means a lot and is worth a lot to a homeowner, but to a potential buyer,
they don't have that emotional attachment. Sure.
It doesn't mean anything to them, and it's not worth anything to them. And but no, everybody does that, and the longer people are in a homes, the deeper that emotional attachment is. And unfortunately, there's not any value in that as far as a monetary value.
Yeah, as far as the market's concerned.
Yes.
We have a caller on the line. We have Roger from Branson. Good morning, Roger.
Good morning. Hey, I was trying to do some quick math in my head. You said if you sold your home for 10% less.
Yeah.
So you lost 10% on the sale.
Yeah.
And you bought it 15% less, so you gained 15%, so your offset is 5%?
Well, no, I may have said percent when I didn't mean to. If you're buying, if you lost 10% on a $100,000 home, you lost $10,000. But if you lost 10% on a $150,000 home, that's a $15,000 difference. And so if you're moving up in price range, you're getting that higher in price range at a same percentage discount, but a higher monetary discount than the lower priced home.
I understand, but you have some costs involved in doing so.
Well, of course, there's always going to be costs with
selling. There's a
home.
6% sale fee and maybe some other.
But in our market,
that you have to take into consideration as well.
Of course, I was speaking of just strictly a sales price and the percentage of what houses have decreased in value. And again, I just use that 10% for easy math. It's not exactly how the percentage homes have gone down.
Yeah. I don't know that this I think the market's recovering a little bit.
I agree.
But I don't see it anything that's that we could celebrate. I mean, I've had some stuff that I wanted to move out of my inventory, and I put it up for sale, and I put some stuff, a single-family home up. I paid $96 for it, I don't know, 8 years ago, and I rented it out, and I put it on the market for $85, which was what they advised me to do, and my offers came in the 60s. So I rented it for $790 and decided to keep it.
Yeah.
Everything I've tried to get out of my inventory because I've been cutting back, and I have to run the cost figures for my taxes and what have you because they were investment properties, and it's a little different when you go to sell those than it is your primary residence.
Yep. You got to worry about those capital gain taxes.
I just didn't see the recovery that everybody's jumping up and down about. Of course, we had I think we had a bigger drop than what we were being told in the first place.
Yeah, and I think the markets, at least up here in the Springfield market, we've seen more houses start to sell, but we haven't really seen prices go back up yet. And I still think it's going to be a couple years before prices start going back up. There's just still a pretty good amount of foreclosures and short sales on the market that are going to be holding prices back. Once we start getting those off the market, and we'll see prices going to start to go back up. But like I said, I think it'll probably be a couple years.
Well, what market are the strongest sales and what price range?
Generally speaking, and this is really true probably almost in any type of a good market or a bad market, I'd say the closer you are to around the 100,000, under 150 tend to always sell a little bit better.
Right. The high end's still suffering somewhat.
Yeah, and the high ends, even in a great market, the high end homes aren't going to sell as well as or as quick as the lower end homes, just because it's a smaller market segment. But I'd say I get real excited when I get a good listing under 150,000 because I know it's probably going to be one that's going to sell pretty quickly, and depending on the neighborhood, even under 200,000, they can still sell pretty good. But once you start getting above that $200,000 mark, it starts to slow down a little bit.
Well, I see the rental market going to the moon. Before too much longer, due to tax increases, insurance has doubled. Water bills are up 30%. Regulations from the city are up. Every time you turn around, if you get a 5% increase on rents, they gobble it up overnight. So I see this whole thing coming to a head to where we can't maintain our rental rates any longer, and we're going to have to pass it through. So another thing I would like to say is I'm in the business of renting properties to people, but I encourage everyone out there who can afford to buy or has the credit to buy to go do so, and do it now. I mean, this is the best time. I've been in this 35 years. Yep. And I've been in Los Angeles and San Diego, California. I've never seen a better time to buy anywhere in any market that I've been in.
I completely
than right
agree.
Now. And
when you factor in the low interest rates and the low housing prices, whether you're wanting to buy for a personal residence or if you're wanting to get into being a real estate investor, it's a pretty good time to get into it.
Yeah, and hire a professional because it's a tricky world out there.
I agree.
Have a good day.
Yep, you too. Thanks for calling.
Thanks, Roger. You made a good point there. Even though you have the volume of sales have gone up, not necessarily the price has gone up.
Yes, and that's a lot of when I think a lot of people are talking about housing recovery and stuff like that. You kind of got to read between the lines in the news. I can mainly just speak for our local market. And like I said, we've seen inventory start to move, but housing prices are still going to be held down for, like I said, I think a couple of years.
Are you seeing, has the foreclosures kind of calmed down? Are we not seeing as many as we were there for a while? There for a while, it seemed like it was just pretty tough. I mean, they were just hitting that pretty hard, but I didn't know if that had backed off any, or if we're still getting a lot of foreclosures coming on the market.
It's kind of hard to say. I haven't seen like too many more homes starting to get foreclosed on, but there's a lot of what we call a shadow inventory that are homes that got foreclosed on a year ago or 2 years ago that haven't gotten back onto the market yet. And
I see.
There's still a lot of those that are coming on. I think for the most part, the people, and there's always going to be foreclosures even in a good market, but a lot of the people who got foreclosed on because they lost a job and when, back in 08 and 09 when things were getting really bad, we've seen the employment market at least kind of stabilize, so not as many people are losing their jobs anymore. So I don't think we're getting a lot more new foreclosures, but we still, like I said, have that shadow inventory of homes that got foreclosed on in the past couple of years, and they just haven't gotten on the market yet.
Do you know when those might hit up the market? Or?
It's going to vary from. There's so many factors that go into it, depending on which bank foreclosed on them. I've seen some that got foreclosed on, and within 2 months they were on the market. And then I've been watching one house for a client for over 6 months, and it's still not on the market yet, and it got foreclosed on over a year ago.
Oh, wow.
So there's just so many factors into it. It's hard to guess when they're going to start coming on.
This is Home Repairs and Solutions, and if someone wants to give us a call today, our number is 862-9977 or 1-800-375-0056. We have Mr. Ron Hartman with us today from RE/MAX. He can answer all your questions, whether you're buying or selling, or if maybe you should buy or sell right now, if you've been thinking about it. If someone is wanting to perhaps list their house, what would you say? I mean, what are some of the things that they need to do to get their house ready for sale? Like you said, first of all, it's got to be priced right. How do they know if their house is priced right?
A lot of people think they need to get an appraisal done before they list their house, and you're just going to be flushing your money down the toilet because there's a big difference between what an appraisal value is and what your market value is. and plus that's the realtor that you hire. That's their job, is to come up with a good competitive price based on what's out there in the market for your house. So that's what you're paying that realtor for, or a good part of what you're paying that realtor for to do. A lot of people always want to know what kind of advertising we're going to be doing for their house
Sure.
and stuff like that. And it boils down to the number one most important thing you can do to sell your house is listed at a good list price. You don't have to give it away, but it's got to be priced for today's market, not priced for the market and back in 05 and 06. It's got to be priced for today's market. And that's, like we've kind of said, that's hard for a lot of people to do, just with sometimes they just financially can't take that loss, or they just don't want to take that loss, depending on what it is. But that's the biggest thing someone can do. All the advertising in the world is not going to sell an overpriced house.
And if you're not in the real estate industry, and if you don't know what's going on within the market here locally and all that, then you probably aren't going to be able to come up with that price on your own.
No, and at least here locally, sales price of homes aren't considered public knowledge, so they're not given to the assessor's office.
They're not?
Nope, it's not considered public knowledge. So when
I didn't
when you
know
get that little paper from the county assessor assessing your property value, I'm not really sure what mindset or formula they use to do that, but it's not based on sales data.
Okay.
Other areas in other states and other counties, they release that to the assessor's office, but here there's not. So it's really hard for the public to be able to come up with a price on their own. Again, that's what a big job of what the realtor is supposed to do, because we'll have access to what homes in your neighborhood have sold for, what the homes in your neighborhood are currently on the market for. But yeah, for the general public, it's hard to get that value.
One of the things that I see some people do sometimes, and I don't know, maybe someone has an older home, and we've talked about staging and stuff before, but
Yep.
prior to getting to that point, what kind of improvements should someone do that will actually help their house sell, that they will actually get their money back on the improvement? I've seen some people come in and they tend to over-improve things.
Most definitely.
I think you have to be very careful about that when you're getting ready to put it on the market to sell. You want it to have a good appearance and you want it to look good, but you don't want to overspend doing a remodel for someone else who may or may not like what you did. And then you spend money you didn't have to and end up actually losing more money on your home. So what are some of the things you advise people to do? Do you help people say,
Most
maybe you should
definitely.
paint this room, or maybe you should do this or that? What can people do?
You got to keep in mind, you want to update your house for the price range you're in. If you own a $85,000 house, it's a real cute little 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, going in and spending a couple $1,000s on granite and adding on a new sunroom and stuff like that. I mean, if you're going to enjoy those upgrades to yourself and going to stay there for a while, if that's what you want to do, by all means, go ahead. But if you're doing it to try to increase the value of that house, you're just not going to get that money out of it. You kind of mentioned one thing, painting rooms, neutral colors, removing wallpaper is a big thing. People just, if you've ever removed wallpaper, you don't ever want to do it again. And
No,
so,
it's horrible.
Yeah, it is.
It's a horrible job.
Pain to do. And so you really, if you can get wallpaper removed and paint things neutral colors, we tell a lot of our clients, when you live in your home, you need to make it your own home. But when you're trying to sell your home, you need to make it to appeal to as many people as possible. You want it to be more like a showroom than a house.
Sure.
And so that's where it comes into painting neutral colors. You may not like that khaki tan color. You may want it to be bright blue, but the general public will want that khaki neutral color so they can envision themselves in that house. When you
How about spending money on bathrooms and kitchens, upgrading?
It's going to vary. Again, you got to keep in mind the price range your house is going to be in. You don't want to put in if you have a $100,000 house, you don't want to put a kitchen out of a $300,000 house in it and spend that money on those appliances and stuff like that. If you have a stove that's left over from the 70s and, old kitchen countertops and old kitchen cabinets, it's a tough one. People want brand new, but they don't always want to pay for it. And
Sure. What about painting kitchen cabinets? Does that sometimes help
if you do a good job.
Do people, is that a turnoff to people? They go, oh, these have been painted, or
it depends on the person. Some people like the wood stain. Some people like the painted ones. I would, unless you're a professional painter, I would have a professional painter do it, because you can always tell when somebody painted the cabinets themselves.
Oh yeah, it's not an easy job to do. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's nothing I would try to do myself, and I'm not the most handy person in the world, but it's definitely something you got to do right, or you'll get the brush strokes in them and the paint drops, and it just makes them look worse than they were before. And doing upgrades, it's hard to say one thing that, yes, that'll definitely bring more value to your house. Most of the things that we do, you update to keep up with current market values, and it's not going to necessarily make your house worth more than the one down the street. As far as if every house in your neighborhood is selling for $100,000, and you put in, no matter what you do, whether you put in new kitchens, new counters, but if every house in your neighborhood is selling for $100,000, you're not going to get $110,000 out of your house.
That makes sense. So you probably don't want to go put those shiny new stainless steel appliances in there. My thought on that is, if that's something that I wanted, I would want to do it. Like you said, if I'm going to be there, I do think it's important to have your home comfortable for you.
Yeah.
Put things in it that you like, paint colors that you like, and all that. But when you get ready to sell, you really want to be careful. You don't want to overspend it. And I have seen that happen. I have seen people do that, thinking that, okay, well, if I do this, then my house will be worth this much more. But that is not necessarily the case. You just need it to be clean.
Yep.
You said, generic colors.
Yep. Just clean. Have it show well. Have it always ready to be shown. Generic colors. And I know a lot of people say, oh, that just sounds boring. But when a buyer comes into a home, they want to be able to envision their stuff in the house.
Sure. I would think one of the things you might want to do is hire a professional cleaning crew to come in and do all of that yucky cleaning that I don't like to do all the time, like the baseboards and all that type of thing. Make sure all the corners on the floor, that you don't have a stuff that's gathered in the corners.
If you're not a real detailed cleaner, some people are just, their house is always going to look like a showroom, and that's just because that's the type of person they are. Yeah, if you're not someone that can really do that and do it well, then it's not a bad idea to have someone come in and just give the house a good deep cleaning, and that way you can just kind of maintain it as your house is on the market.
That way when someone comes in, it does have an appearance of being newer.
Yep. And
maybe a little bit shinier and that type of thing. Smells good, all that stuff. So that's something I hadn't thought about until just now, but I was thinking, when I walk in, one of the things I look at is how clean is it?
Yep.
So that would be something that wouldn't cost a whole lot of money. Plus, you get the benefit of living in it until it sells and it's, spotless. So that's something you might want to put on your list when you're getting ready to sell your home, is get a professional cleaning company to come in and help out with some of the cleaning chores. Well, but it seems to me like once you have someone in and do all that stuff that's, kind of accumulated over time, then it is easier.
It's a lot easier to maintain a clean house than to get it to where it's perfectly clean. Yeah, definitely.
You bet. Well, it looks like it's time for us to take a break. Thanks for being with us. Come back. We have some more great information for you.
This is the Wall Street Journal Report. I'm Jennifer Kashinka. We felt decidedly less upbeat about the economy at the start of the month, sending consumer sentiment to a 6-month low. The Thomson Reuters University of Michigan reading was worse than expected. Economist Lynn Reeser says the drop came despite declining gas prices.
Gasoline prices generally make people feel better when they drop, but what we see is consumers very worried about the softening of the job market, all these problems in Europe, and the possibility of this so-called fiscal cliff here in the United States.
Consumer sentiment is seen as a predictor of consumer spending. On Sunday, Greece's future in the Eurozone will be in the hands of voters, and most are saying the race is too close to call. Despite nervousness about the vote, global markets were cheered by indications that top central banks are ready to step in if needed to stabilize global markets on Monday. And on Wall Street, the Dow Industrials are up 67 at 12,718. The Nasdaq's up 17, the S&P 500 up 7. This is the Wall Street Journal Report.
At Regions, we're building a better banking experience for each small business customer. That means giving you the basics, like checking and savings, as well as offering the right lending options. Because we understand how important capital, revenue, and cash flow are to your small business. So if you're ready for a bank that's as committed to growing your business as you are, switch to Regions. Visit regions.com/yourbusiness today. Regions, it's time to expect more. Regions Bank, member FDIC. All loans subject to credit approval. See individual account disclosures for details.
Smart companies everywhere are getting dressed at Land's End Business Outfitters. We'll embroider your company logo on everything from polos to outerwear. Our quality will unify your team and make your brand better. Small companies to market leaders like Hampton Hotels and Southwest Airlines are dressing their employees at Land's End Business Outfitters. Now let us show you your good name on our good products. Visit landsend.biz. That's landsend.biz.
Here's news on the Ozarks News Network. Governor Jay Nixon has signed into law legislation including cell phones in Missouri's no-call list. Cell phone users can now restrict unwanted sales calls and texts. The list does not restrict calls from businesses cell phone customers already have a relationship with and political candidates. The Springfield Public Schools are installing artificial turf at several high school stadiums. The nearly $1.9 million project will see grass fields replaced at Glendale, Hillcrest, and Kickapoo. The turf is expected to be in place in time for the fall football season. And the Missouri Department of Transportation is warning about the dangers of highway rail crossings. 3 teenagers have died in recent weeks on railroad tracks across the state. MoDOT warns that tracks are private property, and people walking on or near tracks or fishing from trestles are subject to arrest by railroad agents. For the Ozarks News Network, I'm Arlen Summers.
Steve Deeds, one of America's most recognized experts on gold coins for nearly 50 years and president of Morgan Gold.
We're looking at inflation with a capital I. The printing presses at the Bureau of Engraving have just been cranking out Ben Franklin's 24 hours a day. There will be a day of reckoning. That's why you need physical coins.
Why coins? Simple. The government tracks your bullion transactions.
American $20 or $10 gold pieces, you don't have to fill out the paperwork. There's no reporting requirements. This gives you the flexibility. Take them to any coin shop. You just sell them, you walk away with your money.
Why Morgan Gold?
We're direct importers from Europe. I pick out the nicest coins. We buy at the most competitive price, and it allows us to sell at the most competitive price.
There's only one Steve Deeds, the Gold Coin Authority nationwide.
Gold. It's been the right choice for 3,000 years.
Buy direct from Morgan Gold. Call 800-710-9277 for your free Gold Market Insider's Guide. Visit morgangold.com or call now 800-710-9277. Morgan Gold, 800-710-9277.
Hi, I'm Brad Ferris. Did you know a recent Gallup poll that 58% of Americans are worried about their ability to maintain their current standard of living into and throughout their retirement years? Find out how your current mortgage may be costing you your retirement. Yes, a mortgage guide telling you to get out of debt. Find out more on the Ferris Mortgage Hour, Tuesdays at 2 o'clock, right after Rush Limbaugh.
Do you dream about a carefree, financially secured retirement? Now each Saturday morning at 8:30 a.m., Common Sense Economics for the Family with Tommy Ruff gives you information on how to prepare your family for the challenges facing us during the next 3,000 days. Discover alternatives to the low interest rates banks are paying on CDs and how to multiply your money while minimizing your risk. If you want to learn how to retire and not worry about income, tune in to Common Sense Economics for the Family every Saturday morning at 8:30 a.m.
Hi, I am Isabel Walker.
And I am Todd Thomas. We are brokers with Eagle Management and Realty One. We have been featured on such programs as NPR Morning Edition and ABC News and World Report.
We will help answer questions like, why is my home underwater? What do I do if I am facing foreclosure? And we will explain terms like HAMP, HARP, HAFA, and short sales.
Tune in the second and fourth Tuesdays at 10 o'clock to hear our program.
Hot again to wrap up the work week today with times of clouds and sun, high 92. Partly cloudy and humid tonight, low 67. A mix of clouds and sun, warm and humid tomorrow, high of 88 for your Saturday, low Saturday night 69. There is a chance for a shower or thunderstorm in spots, otherwise warm and humid with times of clouds and sun on Sunday. Sunday's high approaching 90. Mostly sunny and breezy for your Monday, the high again near 90. I'm AccuWeather's Jason Lord.
And the present temperature reading in Springfield, 77 degrees.
Well, I went down to the hardware store to see my old friend Bob. I said my roof it leaks, my rug's a mess, and my front door needs a new knob. I got squirrels in my attic, I got bats in my head. Well, Bob just leaned over the counter and he shook his head and said, you need home repairs and solutions. Home repairs and solutions. They'll fix your windows, they'll fix your house, they'll even tell you how to get rid of a mouse. Home repairs and solutions.
And you're listening to Home Repairs and Solutions, brought to you by Spring Mountain Air Heating and Air Conditioning, your local Amana dealer. And once again, here is Mary Pearson and the second half of the show and her guests today.
Thanks, Dan, and welcome back. It's great to have you with us today. I'm going to give out our number one more time before we get busy talking and I forget, but you can call us here if you have a question for Ron or if you have a question for myself or just have something you want to visit about today. You can reach us here at 862-9977 or 1-800-375-0056. And since I've done that, we haven't given out your contact information yet, Ron.
Oh, well,
so how do people get a hold of you if they're wanting to buy or sell a home? They need to give you a call.
Well, yep. Like I said, I'm here locally in Springfield at the RE/MAX House of Brokers office. Our office number is 417-887-5333. Or you can get us online at thehartmangrouprealestate.com.
And that's you and your mom, correct?
Yep, that's me and my mom. I'll say we a lot when I talk about listing a home and stuff, and I do work with my mom. She's been in the business about 10 years now, and I'm into my 5th year, so we've really enjoyed it.
Sounds like a good team.
Most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah. It is a little hard working for family sometimes.
We get along pretty well. Every now and then on a Friday, we'll look at each other and be like, let's not call each other over the weekend. We need a little time apart. But no, I've always been gotten along real well with all of my family, and I don't have any regrets. It's a lot of fun.
Family business can be a lot of fun, though.
Yes.
It is fun to be able to work with your family, and it does make for some interesting moments once in a while. But for the most part, I enjoy that as well. So,
well, it's good because I know she's not going to fire me for wearing blue jeans into the office.
There you go. There you go. And she's always going to love you no matter what because she's your mom.
Most of the time, yeah.
One of the things that we were talking about during the break here is, like you were mentioning, oftentimes, people live in their home for a long time.
Yep.
It's a better idea to do things a little bit over time and always keep in mind that someday you're probably going to sell that home.
Yep.
So try and keep things updated a little bit at a time instead of waiting until, you've been there 20 years, you've never done anything to it, and then you try to update the entire home so you can put it on the market. Oh, not the best strategy.
Yeah, and it's just going to make it easier on your pocketbook and just less stressful for the seller in general. When we were talking during the break, I kind of used my parents as an example. Their house was built in the 80s, and over the time they've painted, and I'd say 10 years ago they put in hardwood floors. A few years after that they tiled. A few years after that they redid their kitchen, and then that way they kind of were able to spread that stuff over time. And they're not going to sell it anytime soon, but now their house is updated with comparable to anything that's a new construction home as far as cosmetic upgrades go.
So looking at it, even though it was built in the 80s, it has the appearance of being a much newer home inside.
Yeah.
And they're getting to enjoy their upgrades.
Yep, and that's a big thing we always tell our clients is don't do an upgrade to a home or an improvement to a home to try to get more value out of it. Do it because that's what you want to do. You'll enjoy those upgrades. If you want to put granite countertops in, don't do it thinking it's going to raise your house value $5,000. Do it because that's what you want. It'll make you happy. And in the end, it might end up helping your house a little bit more. You might get a little bit more for it, or at the very least, it'll help your house sell over another house in the neighborhood.
Sure. One of the things that comes up, and we work with realtors and stuff quite a bit, is something that sometimes people overlook, and I think it's just because it's not something they see every day like they do their cabinets or their countertops or something. But I know that oftentimes we get into situations where a person's getting ready to sell their home or something, and they have a home inspection, and oops, they have a heating or air conditioning issue.
Yep.
So, and that can be a major expense if nothing's been done, if it hasn't been taken care of over time. And so we do inspections for realtors and stuff a lot, or a new homeowner that's looking to purchase a home. Oftentimes they want just a professional to come out and check over the system and see what's going on with it. Now, what I would caution people is if you are going to sell your home, putting in a brand new system does not necessarily add value to the home. Just like we're talking, it will make it more appealing to a buyer.
Very true.
If it's newer. But basically, when you're looking to sell your home or to buy a home, one of the things you want to look at in the heating and air conditioning system is, you do want to consider the age of it, of course, because it does have a lifespan.
Yep.
It's not going to last forever. But you want to make sure that it's in good working condition. We do recommend you do have a professional come out and look at it, and they can tell you exactly what's going on with it. Something else that's not always looked at is the ductwork.
Yep.
You need to have that inspected. You don't want to purchase a home that once you buy it, you find out that the ductwork's come apart underneath the house, or there's an issue with the ductwork somewhere that wasn't noticed or disclosed before selling it.
Yeah.
The other thing is if you're the seller of that home, we come out oftentimes for the seller before they sell it, inspect everything, because the last thing you want as a seller is a glitch in something like that, and it delays closing.
Yeah, anytime a seller gets any sort of inspection beforehand, before we list it, it just always makes it better, because there's going to be, that way there's no surprises for the seller when they finally get the house under contract. They're going to know that they're not going to have any major expenses coming up, or it's already been taken care of, and it definitely helps getting those things inspected beforehand.
Sure, and I will tell you, heating and air conditioning gets dinged a lot in inspections.
Yep.
As you probably well know, a home inspector will come out, and it's just an easy target, I guess. And the unit sits outside, your air conditioner sits outside, your furnace sits in a closet. So there's a lot of dust and all kinds of yuck that collects on the equipment. And so it's just something easy for them to point to and say, this doesn't look right, this is bad, this is whatever. So a lot of times, if you will have a professional come out, clean it, inspect it, make sure it's operating properly, so when someone looks at it, okay, it's already clean.
Yeah.
You don't have all this dust and dirt and debris, on your furnace or on your outdoor unit. You don't have a bunch of leaves or whatever collected around the outside of the unit. And this happens quite often. I don't think people are always aware. They're more concerned with, the inside of it. Does it look pretty when they come in and all that? But on an inspection type thing, they always check the heating and air.
Well, they should be checking it if they don't.
And they should be. So oftentimes we can avoid pitfalls if we do the inspection prior to it going on the market, or if it, depending on, we get into situations with people who purchase foreclosures and stuff, or short sales. Oftentimes you buy those as is. Before you make that purchase, have that checked out by a professional, because it does take a professional to take care of those problems, to install new equipment if that's what it takes. And we can help people make good decisions with that. If you're the seller and you have a system that's down, or something's not working properly, or you need to replace something, we work real good with the sellers on that end of it to put in a system that isn't going to cost them a fortune. It's going to be a good system for the new people purchasing or coming in and buying the home.
Yeah.
They're going to have a new system sitting there, but you don't want to put the most high efficiency system in there if you're going to sell the house. It's like putting granite in there.
Exactly.
You're not going to get the benefit of that. Your house is not going to sell for any higher price. So we like to work with homeowners a lot that are either in the buying or selling process, because we can really help them avoid spending too much money, or buying something that after they purchase it, then they've got a big expense they've got to overcome. So we do that for people. My company is Spring Mountain Air, as most of you know. If you're needing an inspection for any of those type of situations, you can give us a call at 831-4036, and we'll be happy to help you out with that. We did have a lady actually purchase a foreclosure one time. Wanted us, after she purchased it, she wanted us to come out and inspect the system. We went out there. There was no electrical. There was no plumbing. There was no, and unfortunately for her, she didn't realize, she didn't have enough knowledge to know that those things were gone.
Yeah.
They were missing, and
those are some pretty big ticket items to be missing.
And those
in
are
a
some
house.
big ticket items.
Yeah.
So, especially if you're looking at something that you have to buy as is, you can look at the paint color and all that type of thing yourself. But as far as, make sure that your plumbing is in good condition, that your heating and air is in good condition, that your roof is in good condition, because those are major ticket items that you might think you're getting a good deal on the house, but if you have to come in and immediately replace all that at one time, it can be pretty costly.
Well, and especially for kind of just hitting on that same topic, if you're a first-time investor wanting to maybe flip a house and you just don't have the experience of doing it yet, having someone come in and make sure that furnace and air conditioning is working can be the difference of you making a profit on that house or not.
Sure.
If if you're trying to sell the house and get to replace the furnace and air conditioning system, $4,000 maybe, or
an average change out is $5,000 and up, depending on what SEER you want to purchase, what size the unit is, that type of thing. SEER gets people. I get that question. What does SEER mean? Okay, SEER is Seasonal Energy Efficiency Rating.
Yeah.
That is put on all the equipment. It's by the government. The lowest SEER rating you can purchase in the market is 13.
Yeah.
13 is still a good SEER rating. It can go up to as high as 20. So if you're selling your home and you need a new air conditioner, we would recommend you put in a 13 or 14 SEER, depending on what you want to do, but nothing more than that. That's still a good system. It's still going to be much more energy efficient than what you're replacing, but you're not going to be spending $5,000 or $6,000 over what you need to sell it. So there's lots of things you need to take into consideration, and you do need to work with a professional on that, because you could end up spending more money than you need to.
Yeah. And in the case of flipping a home, that can be all of your profit if you
Absolutely.
end up overdoing something like that, or if you don't know that it's in working condition. If you just assume it's in working condition and aren't planning on replacing it, and then once you get into the house you realize it's not and you do have to replace it, that can be a big chunk out of your budget that you weren't planning on. And so it's good to have the heating and air checked out before you buy, any home, but especially a foreclosure if you're wanting to do it as an investment, or if you're planning on doing it as your personal house. Heating and air, roof, anything, all those big ticket items need to be checked out, because they can really factor in on the purchase price of a home.
We've also worked with the buyer and the seller simultaneously.
Yeah.
Which is really a kind of fun thing, because what we can do is the seller, they will agree to put in, let's say, a 13 SEER 80 plus furnace. The homeowner might want something more efficient than that. So what we can do is the person buying the home, let's say they want to go with a 16 SEER because they plan on living there for a while, and they want a 95% furnace. Oftentimes what will happen is we will price it out to the seller for the system he wants to put in, price the system to the buyer, the system they want to put in, and so the buyer only ends up paying the difference in those two. He gets the system he wants because he's buying the home, but he's not paying full price for that system.
He's getting it cheaper than
he's getting it cheaper. So we've been able to do that. The seller's happy, because he's able to sell the home. He's agreed to put forth the money that he would have to anyway to replace the system. And the buyer is happy because he's getting a higher efficient system that he wants, but he's only paying the difference between the two. So it's a win-win for everyone, and it just works out really well if they can work together, especially on a big ticket item like that.
Most definitely.
And that way the buyer's happy, the seller's happy, the sale goes through without any glitches, and it works real well, and we really enjoy working with people like that, because now we've made two people happy.
That's the best scenario. Anytime you can get done with a contract and everybody in the situation is happy, those are the ones you hope for.
Absolutely, and we can help out with that, and are happy to help out with that if that's the situation you find yourself in. If someone is wanting to, let's say that they're wanting to purchase a home.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about selling a home, but if someone, maybe they're the first time in the market, they've never bought a home before, what do they need to know? Because probably like most of us, you have this list of wants that you would like to have, but you also have a budget, especially as a first-time home buyer. How do you work with someone? Maybe they have champagne taste in a beer pocketbook. How do you handle those situations, or what do you teach your new home buyers so that their expectations can meet their financial goals?
And I like that you use the word teach, because it really is, especially for a first-time home buyer, it is an education process on how it works and how to differentiate between their needs and their wants. Because everybody, no matter what price range you're in, you always want what's in that next price range, just slightly out of your reach. That's just human nature, I think. But one is to sit down with them and be like, okay, what are the things you need, and what is your wish list? The biggest thing is get pre-approved before you look at a house. One, because once you find the house you want, you'll be able to write a contract right away. You won't have to wait to get talk to the bank and then get approved that way. You'll be able to do it right away. And two, it lets you know what you can afford, what price range to be in. If you don't get pre-approved first, you might be looking $20,000, $30,000 less than you could be looking, or, which is a lot worse, you might be looking $20,000, $30,000 over what you can be in. And one of the worst things I can do to a buyer, especially a first-time home buyer, is show them something and then find out they can't get approved for that much, because then nothing in the smaller price ranges is going to look as good.
Yeah, their expectations are already that high, and then everything else is disappointing. And I'm sure that the last thing you want to do is put someone in a home that might end up being a financial burden for them. You don't want to do that, especially with new homeowners. You want them to be successful with their purchase. You want them to be happy with their purchase and be able to maintain that payment over a long period of time.
And I've found most people kind of have that. Very few people want to max themselves out on what they're capable of buying, because a lot of people I deal with, they don't want to be what I'll call house poor, where they just, all they can do is pay their house payment and stay home every day. They want to be able to go out to dinner, go on vacation or something like that. And so you got to keep all that in mind. Although the bank may say, yes, you can afford this house payment, you may be able to afford that house payment, but you can't afford anything else. So that's a big thing. I can't stress enough, getting pre-approved first, and really not only getting pre-approved, but knowing what you want your budget to be.
I think that's real important, because oftentimes I don't know that people always think about that, because it's kind of like buying a car.
Yep.
And if you're not careful, when you go to the car lot and you just think, well, I'm just going to go see what's out there, you can really kind of get yourself in some situations you probably don't want to be in. So the same thing with purchasing a home. Most people, that's their major purchase. Their entire life is their home.
It's one of the biggest, well, for I'd say 99% of the people, it's the biggest purchase they'll ever make.
So you want to make sure that you do that right. You make the right purchase and that you're successful in it. Do you also talk to people, like say if they're starting out and maybe they just want to buy a home and they just want to live in it for a couple years, and then they want to maybe sell it and move on? Is that a different approach than someone who's looking to buy something to maybe live there 10 years?
The average person moves about every 5 to 7 years.
Still?
Okay. Well, that's the latest figure I've heard.
Okay.
If someone says they're only going to be in a house 2 years, and I hate talking myself out of a paycheck, but I just tell them to rent. In 2 years, you're not going to, unless you're buying a foreclosure that is under market value and you're going to fix it up a little bit to where you'll have some built-in equity in the house. If you buy a house that's just fairly priced for today's market, in 2 years, it's not going to increase, especially in this market. It's not going to increase enough in value for you to cover your closing cost when you go to sell it, your commissions when you go to sell it. And so unless you're getting just a really good deal on a home, moving in 2 years is just not the best financial decision. Now, people may get transferred with work and they have to move in 2 years. Those things are out of their control, but unless you plan on being there for 5 years or more, it's real hard for me to recommend someone buy a house.
See, and I think that's good information to know as well. Because sometimes, I've talked to people before, especially some younger people, and they'll say, well, we're just going to start with this little house, and then in a couple of years we're going to go bigger. And I'm thinking, I don't think that works very well.
When house prices were going up 10% a year,
sure,
you could get away with that. But around here, if you look at a history for around here, our house prices only go up on average about 2 to 3% a year. From 2000 to 2007, there was periods where they were jumping up 10% a year, and that's just not normal growth. You can't sustain that sort of growth for a long period of time. If you look at over the average, we're about a 2 to 3% increase in home values, and so to get your closing costs out, just to get your realtors' commissions, most realtors are about 6% on their commissions. If you're at 2%, you got to be there at least 3 years just to get your commission.
Just to break even, basically, on your purchase.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, see, you got to factor in all those things.
And it's, as you said, for first-time home buyers that aren't used to thinking this way and they just not done it, it's something new to them. They've got to be educated in that process, and that's what we really try to do, is bring them along with us and talk with them about these things, because sometimes their parents have already told them all this because their parents have bought some houses before, but if their parents aren't around here or aren't around anymore, then they need someone to kind of help them with that stuff.
And it's all a learning curve. It's all a teaching experience. So, well, we've got a couple minutes left today in the show. I want to thank you again for being with us on the show today, Ron. You always have great information.
Well, thanks. I've always enjoyed coming on here. It's a lot of fun.
And hopefully we've maybe helped some listeners out there if they're trying to decide if they should buy or sell or what they should do with their home. So
Definitely.
Hopefully we've given some good information. Why don't you give out your contact information one more time?
I'll be happy to. Again, my name's Ron Hartman. I work with RE/MAX House of Brokers here in Springfield. Office number is 417-887-5333, or you can go to thehartmangrouprealestate.com, and you can email me from that website.
And before we go, I have a little update on Mark Withers, my co-host, and he sent me an email the other day. He's doing very, very well, and hopefully if things work out and he can get some of his rehab changed, he might be back on by the 29th of this month. So in a couple of weeks, hopefully he'll be back on the air.
We'll look forward to that.
But I'm happy to report that he's doing really well. He's feeling good, and things are looking up for him now. He had a kind of a rough couple months, but I hope that he'll be back with us shortly because we sure miss him.
Yeah, we do. And it's all we always say with Mark and Mary, and it's the last several weeks has been just Mary.
It's just been Mary. I know. Yeah. I know. So it'd be great to have him back. And I know he's not listening right now because he's in rehab, but we're looking forward to having you back on the show, Mark. And thank everyone for listening today. Hope everyone has a great weekend.
Well, I went down to the hardware store to see my old friend Bob. I said my roof it leaks, my rug's a mess, and my front door needs a new knob.